Hey everyone, welcome to another $1,000 strap search. I've got my $1,000 in singles here and I'm about to show you what I found. But before I do, let's talk about this week's tip. Now with this week's tip, I'm going to talk about tips. I'm an Uber driver. Sometimes I get cash tips. This was some of my cash tips. This was one particular tip. And that's how I got them. And I always check my tips, okay? And let's just see what we got here. Nothing exciting there. Do you see anything exciting with this one? No? Okay. Oh, wait. Are you sure? Are you positive? Because if you are one of the scammers that I talk about, this bill's worth $1 million. Why? Well, because it has a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6 and a 7. No 8, but it's got a 9. So it's a broken mixed ladder. It's broken because they're not all in order. It's mixed because they're not in the proper sequential order. Yes? No? No, I don't think so. But that's what they're going to call it. So evidently a person thought they were giving me $1 in tips, but I can sell this to the people that are toting it for hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars. Or I can just deposit it back in the bank for $1, because after all, that's all it's worth. $1. But I decided to keep going. And let's see. Was this the one? Check out this bill. 0. But then you have 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a 4-digit ladder. You know what a 4-digit ladder is worth? That's right. Same as a 3-digit ladder. In fact, same as a 5-digit ladder and a 6-digit ladder. I got my info from this book here, the Green Guide to Fancy Serial Numbers. This book, by the way, is a great book when it comes to trying to figure out what the odds are of finding any particular type. I mean, they go through hundreds of fancy serial numbers, and they are brave enough to call BS on certain things. Even though there are hundreds of different serial numbers in here, hundreds of different types of fancies, they have no problem issuing $0 for a value when they talk about stuff that is just worthless. Now, yeah, here 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, lots of zeros. But once again, they do go through, you can see 0, 0, 0. They do go through lots of different things here. So yeah, there are all kinds of types of fancy serial numbers to collect. They just aren't really, all of them are not worth something. Very specific ones are worth something. But I bring that up because my upcoming video on scammer video, my upcoming Sunday scammer video has to do with 4-digit ladders and the research that I do involving 4-digit ladders. Anyway, when I filmed that video and then looked through my tips and was just so amazed that in just a handful of bills I got a 4-digit ladder and an 8-digit mixed ladder, I was just shocked that, wow, here I am talking about this kind of thing, and what do you know, in a handful of notes I happen to find them both. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up and make you guys aware of what's coming up soon. Anyway, handful of tips. That was my tip. Let's get these out of the way and take a look at what I found this week. All right, this was interesting. Well, let me hold it by itself so you can truly appreciate it. This, look down here as I zoom in. I can literally take this little flap and move it. It's tore, it's separated. I could literally peel this whole thing off if I wanted to. Now, if I simply press it back down, it looks like a normal bill. If I was to tuck part of it underneath and then lay it flat, people are going to swear up and down that that's an error. People are already going to call this a lamination error because the back and the front are separating. And truth be told, if I was to soak this in water, I would then be able to just pull this and I could carefully separate the front and the back. You're going to see people on eBay trying to sell these for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. This is damage. It's not an error. It's all it is damage. And just trying to save you guys a little bit. And also, with this one, the 4 is heavily inked. Not an error. And also with this one, if you tilt your head just right, you can see 7 for July, 04 for the 4th, and 1776. This is not a July 4th, 1776 note, as much as it's not an error for having a dark overprint on the 4, as much as it's not an error for having the tear. So there was all kinds of reasons to pull this note and make sure it got some airtime in a video, so that's what that one was all about. Found a stripper note. If you look closely, you can see right through this note, yet there are all kinds of notes behind it, so it's not sunlight. Yep, baby oil. Nasty, nasty baby oil note. Don't want to think about that one too much more. All right, what else did I find? This was interesting. It's a trinary, and it's so close to being a radar. It's 80500588. If this 8 was a 0, then you'd have a radar. It's not, so it has no value. Still a trinary. I set it aside, hoping to pair them, so we'll see what happens there. This one was the same way with being a repeater. It's 6639, 6669. If that last 6 was a 3, it would be a repeater. So it's close to being a repeater, which means it's close to being worth money, but it's not. Once again, still a trinary, 3s, 6s, and 9s, so it goes in my pile. Maybe I'll match one. Another one here, this is 0s, 7s, and 3s. Quad 7s here with marker, not an ink smear, and some stars. 2017 star, not filled in. 2017 star, 2017 again, 2013, and some older notes. 2003A, this one's pretty crisp, that's good to see. Another 2003A, not quite as nice. 2003A, I pull these because they're 20 years old or older. I save all of those because, let's face it, nobody else does. If these are in rough shape, I'll let them go, but I just like to show how many I find out of 1,000, just to give you an idea. There's another 2003A, it's got writing on it, so it's going to go away. 2001, pretty rough condition on this one. Another 2001, also very rough. Probably not going to be sticking around. 1999, torn and taped, so that'll go away. 1995, not a web note. And the last 2 notes, this was neat to find. I'm keeping them because they're in good condition, like I would keep any old notes. But these are both 1995, and they're sequential. So that's kind of cool. 36149129 and 30. So 2 sequential, crisp, uncirculated 1995s. Do I care that they're sequential? No, I think it's a bigger deal that they are uncirculated. I am more excited about the fact that I found 2 uncirculated notes than I are finding sequential notes. Because let's face it, if you want to have an uncirculated note, or multiples of an uncirculated note, pretty much the only way to find those are when they're sequential, because generally you're not going to find a 1995 uncirculated. Let's face it, these have been out of date for quite a while. So yeah, I will be holding on to these. Once again, I don't think there's any additional value for them being sequential, but I do think they are worth more because they are older notes that are uncirculated. All right, that's what I found this week. What did I bring out? Well, I brought out 2 notes. One will appear in my auction. The other will go into my private collection, but I wanted to bring them both out. Well, you'll see. This is a future auction item. It is a Federal Reserve Bank note, or Federal Reserve note, I should say, not Federal Reserve Bank note. Federal Reserve note. This is from 1914, if I remember correctly. Authorized Federal Reserve Act of December 1913. And if we look here, series of 1914. The $10, it has Andrew Jackson on it, which is something we're not used to seeing. We're used to seeing Hamilton on there. But the $10 bill, the first Federal Reserve note that they printed in 1914, has Jackson on it. And when we look over on the back, this is pretty cool. You've got agriculture here, where you've got farming and harvesting, and it shifts over to industry on the other side, where you've got the trains and the factories in the background there. So it's literally the old and the new. And it's interesting how pleasant the background looks here and how grimy the background looks here. Yes, that's what we did. Anyway, the $10 Federal Reserve note, really cool note to have. These are actually quite affordable for what they are. You are getting a large size note for this particular item here, I guess you'd say. And the fact that it's a large size note and it's not that expensive. Now, usually you're going to see $1 notes that are large size selling for anywhere from, $40 to $80. This not being a $1 note, actually, let's take a look at the book. Here we've got a series of 1914 with blue seal. They also made a red seal. And I'll just show you in the top, Federal Reserve notes, $10 notes. The blue seals, they started off printing them with red seals, and those can be quite expensive. But the blue seals, that's what the vast majority of the notes are. Those are much more affordable. And as we go down the list here, this one is from Atlanta, and it features Burke and Glass. Now, as we look at the Burke and Glass, that is $9.25. You'll see that a lot of these are $95, $75, $75, $75. But here, the Burke and Glass is $125 in a grade 8. So this is actually one of the more rare notes. Like I said, all the other ones underneath it are 85 or 75. You can see 85, 75, 75. And then once we get to a 20, the note that I've got is 300 compared to the 175, 150, 125 for the other notes. So the signature combination on this particular note is one of the more rare combinations, which is kind of cool. So even though it's not perfect, it's a little darker. Like I said, it's definitely an 8, more likely a 10, more likely, somewhere between 10 and 12, I'd say, with this particular note. Probably a 10. We'll call it a 10. But the reason I brought this note out was I know this is the real deal, but this one is not. This is a Series 1914 $10 Federal Reserve note. And you can see the word right here. We'll just say that that's not real, and it's not a replica. Now, when we zoom in on the picture here, you can see how the background is not a bunch of fine lines. He looks very surprised in that picture. If we look at the paper is all white. Now, let's look at the paper on this note. Even the paper on this note, you can see it's got some writing. But as we check out the paper here, you're still able to make out the occasional blue and red fiber in this paper, okay? See, there's a little bit here. And as you go over, you can see here's all kinds of blue fibers right there, right here. So there are plenty of blue and red fibers to be found on this particular note. This note, even though the paper is bright white, not a fiber to be seen, not a single one. And once again, I was showing the portrait. Let's see if I can get this portrait in there as well. If we zoom in on this portrait, you can see it's much more defined. This one, very washed out, undefined. Let's look at the seals. The real seal, as close as you can zoom in on that, you can see all the detail. And this, you can see here how white it is in the background, and then how dark it is on this one, and how dark this one is here. It's just all mushed together versus these that are all identical. If we look at the back, here's the real one, and here's this one. Let's look at the 10, specifically the 10, because I can get kind of close on that. There's that. And you can see how this image almost looks just cracked and not exactly right. In the fine parts right here, you can see some of the stuff is bunched together, whereas here, you can see the intricate detail. Looking at this 10, once again, even though the note is in terrible shape, the printing is correct. And this printing looks just off. You don't get the fine detail. You get the cracking effect. So, yeah, to have these two side by side was pretty cool. This is going in my collection of fakes. But this one, I do have another one. And so since this one isn't in the greatest of shape, and it actually has a more rare signature combination. This one will probably end up in my auction, so something to look forward to in the future. All right, guys, that is my 1914 $10 reel and party favor. If you learned anything new this week, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. Love reading all your comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.